Community Board or Police Accountability meeting on February 25th. Our online folks were able to get in, so I appreciate everybody's patience while we were navigating that. Next slide, please. So just some quick welcome and housekeeping. Around the corner is the public restrooms for anybody in the building, and emergency exit is diagonal from where we are right now, out that back door. Also, I'll say this more in the staff report, but for online, there's not a way to do online commenting right now. It's being worked on, and we're hoping to have that addressed very soon. But I'll share more details about that. For right now, there is a Q&A, and folks can enter their comments and questions into that space. But actually coming on camera and speaking is not quite available, and I'll share why in my staff report. So that is my welcome. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Oh. Just 1 second, please. We're going to make sure that the slides are up on the screen, sorry. The next thing is going to be introductions of the board. So maybe I'll just talk about that while we're getting the names of folks up. And so we'll do the same thing that happened last time, where we'll just go in alphabetical order to introduce yourselves. For the folks that were unable to be here the first time or had technical issues and were here but couldn't participate, it'd be great if you could do the 1 to 2 sentence introduction that folks did the last time. So Kyle, we'll start with you, please.
Hi, yes, Kyle Ashby, he, him pronouns. I've been a longtime resident of District 2. I've been a community organizer for a number of years, and now I work in the tech sector.
Murtaza, are you able to come off mute and introduce yourself? Okay, Murtaza Batla is joining us online. Justice, would you please go?
Justice Brooks, and happy to be here. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. I'm an attorney.
Hi, everyone. Madeline Carroll, she and they pronouns are both great. I've lived in Northeast Portland for more than 20 years, and I'm bringing about 10 years of community organizing experience with a focus in policing to the board. Yeah, please. Yeah, happy to be here. Doing great.
Hi, I'm Sarah Citronbaum. I live in Southeast Portland. I've spent the past 20 years or so working as a cross-disciplinary research specialist with national security teams on a whole variety of matters.
Corinne Fichette, and I'm a community member in Old Town, special education teacher and advocate for the unhoused, and happy to be here.
Trish, it's your turn.
Yeah, my name is Trish Garner. I use she, her pronouns. I worked as an attorney for most of my career. Since then, I've worked on behalf of a number of public policy and social justice organizations. I live in North Portland. Thanks.
My name is Skylar Halsey. I am pretty new to the 3rd District and only been in Portland for a few years. I am a chaplain and caregiver. Happy to be here.
How y'all doing? My name is Terrence Hayes. I'm a community member, unfortunately over controversial on this group, but I think I bring a lot of lived experience from losing a cousin to police violence all the way to working with the community fit team, the police fit team that's tasked with dealing with gun violence in community. So I hope to bring some balance and perspective in this work.
Jillian Herrera was online, and I do not see them now. So, oh, here we are. Jillian, can you come off mute, please? Jillian, if you're able to come off mute. I am texting. All right, Ash, why don't you go while we're working with Jillian, please?
Hi, my name is Ash Jimenez, she, her pronouns, District 1. I work for Multnomah County in the Department of County Assets. I'm really looking forward to digging in and just giving more to my community. I think I bring a lot of objectivity and reason, and I'm looking forward to this opportunity.
Hi, my name is Pete LaRosse. I spent the last 25 years working internationally, Africa, Asia, and Latin America, doing community mobilization, access to health, education, economic opportunities, community mobilization, and I wanted to apply those skills and experience to my new home of Portland, which I've been in for the last 5 years. I'm looking forward to being part of this group.
Hi, my name is Tita Lane Howe. I'm currently working at the District Attorney's Office. I've been in D3 or District 3 for about 13 years now. I have an approach to nonviolent disobedience in my general activism, and my focus is on communications, policy. I also am very interested in political science itself. I'm very interested in making progress in our group, but also just at this point getting to know each other. There is a lot of change that needs to be made in our community, so I'm really happy to be here. Pronouns, she, they. Thank you for having me.
My name is Shelley Maddox. I am a 6-year resident of District 1. I come to this work primarily as a mother. I have a PhD in philosophy of education and education policy, where my expertise is in philosophies of love and the ethics of power dynamics and asymmetrical relationships. I work in the city as a paralegal.
And Jesse Nelson is unable to be here this evening, so Tim O'Donnell, will you please go next?
Tim O'Donnell, I'm a resident of District 2, he, him pronouns. I've been in Portland almost 20 years now. I work as a deputy prosecutor in Marion County. I'm excited to be part of this board.
Hi, I'm Tim Pitts, also he, him pronouns, also District 2 resident, also about 20 years, and a small business owner.
Hi, everybody. I'm Natisha Pratt. Sorry, bear with me. I'm a little sick today, so I'm not with you in person. I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and I graduated from Jefferson High School. I've dedicated my entire career to affordable housing, which I currently oversee a very large part of it in Oregon. I feel a huge sense of responsibility to my BIPOC community to be involved in this board, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Dina Ross, she, her pronouns. I've been a resident of District 4 for close to 2 years. I am a master's level social worker specializing in policy, social justice advocacy, working with houseless populations, as well as substance use disorder research. I'm very excited to be here, and I want to thank everyone who keeps showing up from other boards, city council being involved, and also all my board members for putting in the time, as well as city staff. So thank you so much for continuing to show up.
Atticus Summerfield is a alternate who was recently appointed to the board, and they are unable to be here at this time. So Benedict, please.
Hey, I'm Benedict, he, him pronouns. Lived in Portland since 2018, and I'm happy to see you all again. Let's do something.
I love it. Murtaza, are you able to come off mute and introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. I'm Murtaza Batla, he and pronouns. I am a 10-year resident of District 4, and am excited to work with this board and start its work.
Thank you. Jillian, can you come off mute, please?
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yay, okay. I'm Jillian. I live in North Portland. I believe that's District 2. I'm still learning the districts, to be honest, but I've been in Portland for 10 years. I was a 7-year preschool teacher before being a social worker for 5 years, and then I got into labor organizing. So I'm also a biracial Indigenous person and come from communities that have a history of being over-policed and subjected to discriminatory policing practices. And so I'm really happy to finally be here. Unfortunately, I'm out of town right now at a conference for work, so I'm looking forward to being there in person next time after all of these technological issues that we've been having. Thanks.
Thank you. And I just want to let everybody know that Atticus is online. They just aren't able to come on camera or speak. So more technical things for us to work through. Next slide, please. Okay, staff report. Everything on the agenda tonight are things from your last meeting that you gave me direction on, and with the exception of the training that I need guidance on. And so I was wanting to add a staff report so I can share where some things are in the works for you all and help get you all on the same page of what's been happening on your behalf. So I'll be very quick for this. One of the things we did this week, in between the two meetings, was upgraded the entire board's licensing. So originally you all had web version access only to Microsoft Suite, but now you have the desktop access, which has a little bit more robust features. And that should have also fixed the technical issues we had, but unfortunately that did not. So more work to be done there. And we did several Teams town hall tests with folks, but still complications are happening. The Portland Bureau of Technology Services issued me an upgraded Teams account to be able to do more functionality for this type of meeting. I have not had time to train myself yet, so that's coming. And one of the things that is needed still to figure out is how we work in public comment online for folks. So right now on the meeting invite, there is a disclaimer saying public comment is limited. So for any of our folks who are attending virtually, there is a Q&A online that you can post your questions and comments to. But right now, until I get more training, we aren't able to let folks come online and speak to you all directly. I'm working on that as fast as I can. I have a meeting next week with my liaison for technical services to also figure out how we add signups for public comment on the website. So we no longer have the printed version at the table. So that's all being worked on for you all. 2 new members. I also spent some time working on getting new laptops ready for folks and getting those set up. We heard about community feedback about the room setup, especially the chairs being far away. And so that's why the seating is closer. We also had comments about live captioning and that being a struggle with the in the room on the PowerPoint. And so we've turned on auto captioning for YouTube for folks. And I'm working with the city contracted vendor to get live captioning here at the meeting. Unfortunately, with the communication, it just wasn't able to happen tonight, so it should be in place for your next scheduled meeting. At the last meeting, you all requested meeting rules and different ways to facilitate, so I sent the group several links. There, you also gave the direction that you wanted to meet with Modus's chief executive and have him present to the board. And so thankfully, Orlando Williams is here tonight to do that. So thank you, Orlando, for making yourself available. Appreciate that. We are working right now on getting the contract that the city has with Modus sent to folks, whether that's email or printed. We're still working on that piece. So just FYI, that is coming. So you'll have that for your decision. We also started working on website upgrades to make sure that there'll be a space for anything you want to add to the website around your director recruitment, and working to get information on the CBPA bios and photos if wanted up on the website, in addition to allow folks to be able to contact you. During the recruitment for the board, I had set up an email, cbpainfo@portlandoregon.gov, and that inbox is still active, and so folks can use that as a general communication and get access to the whole board for questions. You'll have to decide how you want to respond. Name tags and nameplates. We had the feedback that it'd be helpful to have name tags. We tried getting that done before this evening and did not work, so I apologize. So when you're speaking, it might be good to say, "Hi, Shelley." I'm looking at Shelley. That way folks can start learning your names until we can get those professional name plates for this meeting done. But that is being worked on, so is name tags for when you all need that. I also had a meeting with the independent court-appointed monitor just to discuss recommendations that they had on time-saving things towards implementation. So they recommended identifying an executive search firm ahead of time, do the city requirements for identifying a classification and such. All of that's happened. They also wanted to recommend increasing staff resources and contract with multiple background check vendors to ensure a speedy turnaround time. I shared guidance to everybody about the city attorney's office about public meeting laws. And then I sent out some preparation for tonight's meeting, including the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement recommendations for qualities that they recommend that an executive have. In addition to the Bureau of Human Resource document of eliminating bias in hiring, some city sample questions for interviewing, and also pointed you all in the direction of the Society of Human Resource Management's website that has best practices for hiring managers. You requested a draft of the job posting for the director, so you should have a copy in front of you. If you don't, let me know and we'll get you one. That was also emailed, so you'll be able to discuss that tonight. If you do make edits on the document, I ask you put your name on it, so in case I can't read your handwriting, I can go back and ask clarifying questions. You also were granted a training extension due to the few items that are still outstanding. That new extension is April 1st, 2026. I sent an email pretty last minute, so you may not have seen it, about some budget information. There was, at the last meeting, requests about understanding the OCPA, CBPA budget, and I sent an email sharing what has been worked on, what is continuing to be worked on, and we're hoping to get you all the documents very soon. And I think that's it. So thank you for bearing with me with my staff report. If you have any questions, I would love to hear them. Dina.
Are members of the public allowed to see the draft director job posting?
I had asked for guidance about that, and if I got guidance back, I missed it, so I didn't know how we would share draft things, so are we allowed to share? Sorry, I'm asking in the moment.
The board can decide how to. Hi, Tracy Warren, Deputy City Administrator for City Operations. You can decide that you as a group would like to share the draft job description. I would leave that to you. There's nothing confidential within that document.
Yeah, Dina and then Tim, please.
Okay, so given that, if we decide to do that, since we're going to be talking about this tonight, I think it's important that before we discuss it, the public can see this. How would we do that now, given that it's already printed out? It maybe should have been on the website where the agenda was so the public could see it.
Yep, I'm happy to keep working on that in the future. Oh, hold on just 1 second. So if you all want to decide to make it public as a group, you can vote on that. And I do have some extra copies here for members, not enough for the room, but I do have some extra copies. So is there a motion to vote?
I'll make a motion.
I second the motion.
Great. Any discussion? Tim and Tita, sorry.
Go for it.
Yeah, just to, sorry, take a minute. We just got this. I don't have proper feedback on it. I'm not going to be prepared to vote on a job description tonight. So I would love to have a format like Dina was suggesting where documents are available for the public to see in advance of the meeting and to where we have the runway. And so I think we could have some basic conversation about this, but I just can't imagine like that any of us have sat with this long enough. And I definitely think that the public needs to see what we're going to discuss before the meeting, or else there's no reason to have the public at the meeting.
Yeah, and it was shared ahead of time with folks, but I understand people may not be able to see their emails the whole time. But yeah, Tita?
So I read this document and this job description, and I was very impressed by how thorough it was and how inclusive it was of multiple skill sets. Well, can't
right now,
wait.
so hold on one second. Right now, we're discussing whether you want to
Yes.
release it to the public.
And I'm leading up to that.
Okay,
So
sorry.
I really liked it so much that I think it would be valuable to share with the public. So I read all of the preparatory materials. I checked out all of the links. I'm completely prepared to be at this meeting. But I also understand people wanting to take a little more time in order to make their decision. That is completely respectable.
Terrence?
I just want to understand, this is a draft, right? And I think, like, it's just a draft. You work through drafts, you edit drafts. I think it's important that the community can follow along. I think if we start getting into, like, presetting drafts or getting ahead of ourselves, it's just a draft. Let's get the draft. Let's vote on whether or not drafts should be accessible to community members. Let's get it up. As we make through edits, we'll get the community members the edits. I wouldn't want to get caught up in debating how we get a draft out. I think community should follow every aspect of what we're doing and watch it really tightly to hold us accountable to it. So I would just recommend, as we've already moving forward, that we just vote on whether or not we're going to allow community to see drafts, and simultaneously that they continue to see the edits of the drafts as they come along. That way we're not stuck here every time we do an edit. We would just show those edits as they come.
I'm just going to look online real quick. Is there folks online that have anything to add?
I agree with Terrence. It's Natisha, sorry.
Yeah, Justice.
I want to raise a concern. Two things, like this is our outward facing representation of what we're doing. We haven't had a chance to look at it, comment on it, or provide any edits with it. So sharing it with the public immediately right now without having anybody here having any input, I think would be improper. This is a draft that comes from the city. We're responsible to be able to edit it and put it forth, which then it becomes ours. That's at which point I believe it should be put out to the public based off what we have. So my opinion on it.
Go, nope, unmute please. And
I agree with Justice completely.
Is there any more discussion, or would you like to vote on it?
What exactly are we voting on?
You're voting to make the draft document public
As it currently exists.
as it currently exists. Is there any more discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to add, can we add to that vote that the public will see the edits as we do them also? So if we do decide to release the draft, we're not debating edits every time they come up. We're just automatically releasing everything to the public as we work through it.
Go offline. Say it.
So
Hi,
I'll make a
sorry.
motion, please. I'll make a motion to make the draft visible and all edits as they come visible to the public.
I'll second that motion.
Sorry, Heidi Brown, City Attorney's Office. Let me just look into, I'm just trying to think through if you are editing it, if it's made public the entire time, then are there any concerns? So I'm just going to take a few minutes to think that through. If you don't mind, if you could consider you already have a motion pending on the table, so I think you should follow up on that motion, and then can you wait, unless you're moving to amend the motion, but it'd be good, generally you'll vote on the initial motion, and if somebody wants to amend it, you can amend it. But if I can have a few minutes to think through public meetings laws and how it works, so I make sure that I'm giving you good advice about avoiding any possible problems with public meetings laws.
I offer an amendment that anything that is deemed by the city to not be covered by the NDA is automatically made public.
Sorry, it's, just to be clear, it's not the non-disclosure agreement that I'm concerned about.
Anything that is not considered hidden, what's the language you would prefer?
Oh, it was, I just want to make sure it doesn't violate public meetings laws.
Okay, anything that does not violate public meetings laws would be made automatically open to the public.
I'll second that.
I also think for the editing part, at least, that we should have public comment before making a motion or voting on that. I would say to make this public, that makes sense to do without public comment, as we're attempting to be more transparent as we should be. But for the editing part, I think we should maybe have the chance for people to come up and speak before we vote, as should all motions.
It seems like we're already leaning at least towards a particular governing style.
Yes, I am. We should be transparent with the community and have public comment before all votes.
No, I mean in terms of the ones we have discussed. Yes.
I'm a little bit concerned that if we have public commentary
So-
on every single thing before we.
Can you speak directly into the mic for accessibility? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a little bit concerned about having public commentary and edit suggestions and stuff on things like the drafts before we even get a chance to discuss them. I think at some point you have too many cooks in the kitchen, and it needs to get to a point that then can be commented on. But I just think if every little thing is going to be put out there and get comment on, I'm not sure how anything gets done. Like, yeah.
I want to agree with that. And what I mean by that is I absolutely believe in transparency. But at what point, we also need to get things done. So what I'm not sure of and what I don't understand as a group yet is how many times does the public need to see something before it's finalized? Is it every draft, or what does it look like? Excuse me. Is it a first final, are there 3 drafts, are there 10 drafts, are there 20 drafts, or is there going to be public comment every time? Because then it could take us, 6 months before we have a job description. So again, I think we need to balance transparency with also the need to actually get things done. So I'm happy to find out what the right solution is, but I do think that seeing every single comment and every single change is actually counterproductive in the long run.
So what I hear is a call for transparency, and I want to reiterate the point that was just made. I am for transparency as well. The issue I have is the representations that are made here that don't accurately reflect what we're doing, but then also more importantly, I've actually read through the draft and made my edits, and there's missing periods, there's not capitalized words, there's words that most people in the public wouldn't even understand, i.e. iterates, which I had to look up to figure out exactly what that meant and whether that was a proper use of the word, and I have a pretty wide vocabulary. So I say that I don't want to just have transparency just for transparency's sake, but have transparency with the idea that it accurately reflects what we want and accurately reflects the body as a whole here.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with this being a super messy process to start, but could we just finish whether or not we're going to release this draft as it exists today, irrespective of whether or not we've all read it, if we want to make edits, how we want to release those edits, could we just resolve the vote of whether or not we're releasing this draft to the public?
So, this is Benedict. I tried really hard to not say this, but I feel like I have to say it. I want to call the question right now, but we haven't adopted any set of rules, so I can't call the question and vote on this. And so I really urge everyone to think whether we can at least adopt some interim rules, because otherwise we'll have these discussions that go in all kinds of different directions, and we don't have an interim chair that could in any way say sorry, this point is not germane to the discussion, we have to vote on this motion now. We really need some set of rules, otherwise we'll just have these free-floating conversations and go on forever.
Seconded.
I'm going to hop in real quick if I can.
Oh, go ahead, Tisha.
I'm just I'm trying to kind of pipe in for a little bit of myself, but those that are also with me online. There's a lot going on with this specific vote, and I think that we also have to remember that there's 21 of us. And when I hear, motions, there's only like 2 people voting out of 21 folks, and it seems a little awkward to me. It almost feels like there's a lot of silence in a lot of different ways. There's a draft that needs to be put out there. I get it. I'm totally transparent with that. I'm okay with the draft being released. I think that there are things that need to still be worked through. There's a lot of edits that are going to happen, but we also don't have a solid structure. So, the voting processes and things all still actually have to be determined on how we're doing things. So just jumping right in, it just seems like we're jumping right into stuff, and it's moving very fast without any thought process. And I don't know about anybody else, but it kind of bothers me just a tad. So I just thought that I would share that.
I would agree with
Anybody else can
Tisha.
hop in.
You all have a current motion on the floor right now, so before discussing any other motions, I think, Corinne, you made the motion to vote to make the public document, and Dina seconded. And is there any other discussion, or can you vote on this now? Okay, I'm going to start with the online folks, and because this is divided, I'm going to ask individually yay or nay. So Tisha, I'm just going in order of screen.
Yay.
Sorry, can you say that again? I didn't hear you.
Is it to make the draft public?
This is
correct?
to make the draft public, yes.
Okay, yay.
Murtaza?
Or aye.
Oh, hold on. So that was about making the names known, so I'm writing down who's voting, just so everybody knows. Okay, Murtaza, yes or no on the motion, please? To make the draft public? Murtaza, can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to skip and go to Jillian. Jillian, yay or nay?
Yay.
Thank you. Atticus?
Yay.
Great. Murtaza, are you able to vote?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Yes. My vote is yes to make the draft public.
Thank you. And then we'll just go down in order.
Yes.
No.
I think we should hear public comment before taking vote on anything, but I do think that we need transparency, so I'll vote yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes, with the stipulation that's created by the city.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the majority was yeses, so we'll make the document public. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, yeah. Got it. So 16 voted yes, 4 voted no.
This is Shelley.
Sorry, Shelley.
Okay.
I was counting.
I spent significant time with this draft before today's meeting, as I'm sure many of you did as well. And I have to say thank you, Kristen, for all of everything that you named in the staff report. Thank you for everything that you're doing for us. I really appreciate this as a first draft, and I have a lot of suggested edits. I think we need a practice for moving forward with how we share those with each other and how they are combined so that we can agree on what this looks like and get it out the door. Does that look like redlined Word documents? Does it look like you reading all of my handwritten notes? Because it's a lot. And I would like to know what everyone else thinks about how we pull that together moving forward.
Real quick, I'm just going to recap the votes. So there were 16 yeses, 4 nos, and then 1 person absent.
Before we proceed, I would suggest that we have to adopt rules. We just can't keep functioning ad hoc.
I agree with you. In the interim, before we discuss this at all, can we please somehow get it to the people in the room or the public before we make any comments on this? That's all I ask. Thank you.
Yep, we can also share it on screen, but I have copies up here, folks. And we'll get it passed out in just a second.
I just would like to point out that during the PAC days, redlining was done live on screens, which allowed for everyone, the participants, the members, the public, to witness what people were working on. And it feels like it was the right way, it was democratic. So maybe considering doing redlining as they did was a good model. Just putting it out there.
I think it's a brilliant idea to share it with the public. It's also going to increase our chances of finding the right person. I understand wanting to improve the drafts. I hear both sides of the situation, coin, cube, whatever you want to choose to describe the quandary we're in. Again, I'm looking forward to finding the right person. I think it's okay to go through this difficulty. I think we are already leaning towards the democratic style of governing. I'm also hearing the consensus style of governing. But then there is a huge need to still choose leadership, which is chair and vice chair, just due to the community involvement that we're going to have to deal with. But I'm liking that there is this level of conflict, even though that sounds counterintuitive, because that shows me the eagerness to move forward with the work.
I guess do you want to follow the agenda and hear from the search agency first and then discuss the draft? Because I think that's the agenda, and I guess my personal hope is that they can help us with the draft, so we can maybe delegate some of the wordsmithing to somebody who has lots of experience with that.
Thank you, Benedict, for that. Would the board like to hear from the guest presenter that you wanted me to invite to the group? And then just to circle back to something that Tim Pitts had said, I did have a sign-up sheet specifically to have public comment around discussion topics. Nobody has signed up for them. They can still sign up in the room, but that was presented at the table for folks, so.
Right,
it's
yeah, I
just-
guess I just expect that people that are here live in person might realize that something comes up in the course of the meeting that is something they want to comment on and that
Yeah.
they didn't sign up in advance, so.
Yep,
that's all.
totally get it. Okay, well, I'm gonna welcome up Orlando Williams, who's the chief executive for Modus, to present to you all. And we will get his slides. Also, Christopher Para, who is the supervisor for recruitment in the City Bureau of Human Resources.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for welcoming us in and having an opportunity to share with you our experience in recruitment. And I recognize that there are some items on the table. Our presentation does cover some of those items, so I look forward to maybe going through some of that detail, but welcome the opportunity to answer questions and maybe share some insights that we've gained over the last several decades of working with local municipalities. So I'll just start while the slides are being prepared. I'll start with just a quick introduction since you've all introduced yourselves to me. So I'm Orlando Williams, Chief Executive and Equity Officer for Modus Recruiting. My family came to Oregon in 1952. I've been here in Portland for 50 years, or well, a little over 5 decades now, I'll say that without being too specific. And just appreciate our city and the work that is being done, and I appreciate all of you for your commitment and attention to such an important topic. Okay, all right, we have our slides. So I want to start out, Modus Recruiting has been supporting the state of Oregon and the city of Portland for just about a decade. And our work has included everything from city planning, from a chief planner perspective, all the way through water resources and development and licensing. So it's been a pretty broad spectrum at this point. And one of the areas that I would like to highlight, and we can go to the next slide, is that we have a tremendous amount of experience of working through complex matters and difficult recruitments. And I think that's important because the items that you were discussing just moments ago are oftentimes not only transparency matters, but they're also process matters. And so process is going to be incredibly important for this recruitment. In addition to the ability to find a director that can achieve your goals and your mission, we want to make sure that we run a transparent, psychologically safe, and I would call trauma-informed process. It's very important that we consider those things. And that's experience that we've had. So we were founded, we celebrated our 20th year, 2 decades, in January of this year. So we're very pleased with that accomplishment. And most of our work, as I've mentioned, has been in this particular area. We are based in Portland. That is our headquarters. Although we are located throughout the country, we have presence in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Utah. And then we have facilities and reach in the Southeast, which is Florida, North and South Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee. The purpose for that is so that we have national reach. About 97% of our recruitments are national in scope, and we oftentimes focus on a regional or local appeal for talent. If that's necessary, it becomes really important to make sure that individuals have a really strong understanding of the communities that they're going to be a part of and that they're leading in. So next slide. Our recruitment process is twofold. The first, it's important to know that we're a retained executive search firm, which means that we are your partner, we are your consultant. It's not just a recruitment for us, and I think that's important as well. It's not just a recruitment, it's us locking arms and journeying together through this process. And that is incredibly important because you have 21 voices, 21 thoughts about how this process should go. And what we hope to bring to this process is efficiency, transparency, and an agile methodology which brings efficiency to the recruitment process as well. We actually have a trademarked process that we call Better Best methodology, and we trademarked it, and it's been used across the country and well received. And that's important to you because the Better Best is not only for the individuals who are conducting the recruitment as panelists like yourselves and as leaders, but also for the candidate. We can ill afford to not recognize that the candidate experience is extremely important in this. We want to make sure that individuals who are considering the OCPA is that they are really in tune to your mission, that they believe in it, and that they have passion for it. And that experience is going to be important because you're not going to select everyone. There's only going to be one finalist. But we want the other individuals who've come through this process to feel like they've been a part of a process. And even though they weren't selected, they feel really positive about their experience as candidates. I think in this room, maybe we've all been a candidate at some point or one time or another. And we know what it's like when you're selected, and you know what it's like to not be selected. And we just want to make sure that you're all represented extremely well when the individuals aren't selected, and that the person who is selected feels like they have the tools and the resources to be successful in their role. Next slide. So a little bit about the process. One of the things that we have outlined is how do you walk through a recruitment when there are multiple voices and opinions that and perspectives that need to be taken into consideration. So in our Agile Better Best methodology, and if you're familiar with the Agile process, it means that there's a series of sprints. And those sprints help us get to certain mileposts along the way. And I'll talk about those sprints in just a moment, but it allows us to get to certain benchmarks, certain mileposts, and I think in an effective and positive way. So the first thing that we would like to do is define roles. You have 21 members. That, in our experience over the decades, it doesn't mean that all 21 members in any particular instance are the individuals who are guiding and leading every component of the process. So when you talk about editing a job description, and we'll talk about that in a moment, you have 21 editors. And that can be a challenge at times. And so you have to think about, what does that look like to have 21 editors? What makes the edit? What doesn't? What gets cut? What gets included? That's an important component, and we're here to guide you through that process and help you identify whether or not the methodology that you're going to deploy is best practice, and whether you'd like to be nimble and do something different. And we're okay and we're open with that. That's what Agile means to us. The next step is the project planning. It's important to have a project plan looking at the dates and the timing. When do you want to accomplish these goals? Our recruitments typically are about 90 days in duration. And a lot of that has to do with calendaring, just to be candid. It's all of your calendars. Anyone who's going to be participating in the interview process, we like to make sure that we're coordinating that for you. You're all busy. You have other things that you're doing. And so we want to make sure that we're inclusive and that we're equitable in how we're managing calendars and who can be present and what decisions get made. And recognizing all of the public meeting requirements and compliance. We have extreme experience in that. We've worked with the city attorney in the past. And so we want to make sure that we're accommodating those items as well. We do use data that help guide our processes. So not only is the process equitable, but we're looking at individuals, and I would suspect in this type of recruitment, we could have over 100 applicants that apply. And we want to be able to look at that data and help you make a fully informed decision. It's data about who's applying, where are they coming from, what is their background, what's their experience, demographic information, all of those things in order for you to make an equitable decision are part of our process as well. Our firm, in spite of all of the challenges that we see in our environment, still has a tremendous focus on equity and diversity. So what we guarantee is that there's going to be a diverse candidate pool, and that you're going to be able to select from individuals from different walks of life and backgrounds. And so that's a part of our process as well. The other element is, how do we engage the community? So any recruitment that has a tremendous amount of value when you're thinking about public comment and public input should engage the community in a thoughtful way. So when I say thoughtful, let me define that for you for just a moment. That means that we're going to be in the community with multilingual ability for people to comment. We have ADA compliant abilities for individuals to comment. So whether individuals need additional accommodations, we make sure that the process is fully accessible for individuals who would like to participate. We don't want to exclude anyone from that process, and that's really important. We have a continuous feedback loop in our Agile process. So anyone of any of our processes, all 21 members, can not only comment in the process, but you can also comment directly to me or my team. And so as we're moving along and there are things that you might want to see adjusted or there are comments that you have, we welcome that opportunity to have those conversations so that we're, again, being inclusive, but we're also being thorough in how we're completing the recruitment process. I've already mentioned the candidate experience, so I'll skip over that. And then, Justice, you talked about iterative. So we do have an iterative process, which means that we change it along the way according to your guidance, right? So if you have things that you'd like to see in our process, we're nimble enough, agile enough to make those adjustments on the fly. That is incredibly important in recruitment because inevitably, as we've seen tonight, you're going to find things that you want to change in the recruitment process. And you want a firm that has the ability to do that in real time. And we do, and we have practice at that. Next slide. So how would we conduct this recruitment? What's our recommendation? I'm going to make some recommendations this evening just at the high level. And certainly these would be things that, as I mentioned, we would be nimble to adjust. The first thing that we'd want to do is have a kickoff call. This is our launch. This is an opportunity for us to hear what is important to you. Great, we have a draft job description, but what about the intrinsic values? What about the elements of the personality traits that the individual is going to bring? What are the characteristics that you're looking for the person who is going to be leading? And that's important. We want to gather that. And our team gathers that. We synthesize it. We give it back to you. You're able to give us feedback on that. Do we accurately and comprehensively receive your feedback in a way that you say, yes, that represents my voice. I can see my voice in this characteristic competency for the candidate. And then we move into our marketing strategy. So we manage 100%, in addition to partnership with the city communication team, we manage 100% of the communication to the public. So that's social media, it's marketing, it's publicity, it's promotion of the recruitment process, promotion of all of you and the work that you're doing, promotion of what we're trying to achieve as a mission. We want individuals not only to see the role that are candidates, but we need the public to understand the importance of this work. And we want, candidly, we want to celebrate it. We want to tell the public how important it is. And that's part of our marketing strategy and what I call brand guardianship. The next area is our listening session strategy. So our listening sessions are public. We recommend having listening sessions for all of you, but we also recommend having listening sessions for the community and for any key members that you think we should talk to. And we co-curate that. So none of this is us leading and without input. We co-create every aspect that I'm describing to you today. So community members, we're gonna ask you, we have a list because we've worked in the community, we're a part of the community, so we have a list, but we also welcome the feedback that you might give us that would engage the community. And that would be public forum so that they can inform us. And then you don't have to be present. You can be, but you don't have to be present. In the past, what we've done is we've conducted it, and then we give you the results. And that way you can see it. You can hear what the community is saying. And oftentimes that can help guide some of the decisions that you make maybe in other areas. So it's very helpful in that regard. We do design a rubric. The rubric is our guiding principle. Ultimately, if we get to the part where we're starting the recruitment and we don't have a rubric, then we're like a ship without a rudder. We need to be able to look at this rubric and decide these are the things that all 21 of you have said, these are the things that the community has weighed in on, and we want to make sure that we have that rubric that guides the principles. That rubric is also key in the position announcement and position description. So as you're thinking about the position description and making it public and the iterative process that goes into that, whatever you're making public today, in many cases, from my understanding, and I can be corrected if I'm incorrect, does not currently include your voices. And I think that's incredibly important that your voices are included in whatever is in public because you're going to be held accountable for it. So we like to make sure that that brand guardianship is not just brand guardianship for the city, but it's brand guardianship for all of you. And that's important because of the work that you do. We move into the focused recruiting time. So for us, it takes us about 30 days to find talent. So the recruitment is 90 days, but in that 30-day window, about 87% of our talent comes from direct sourcing. If you're not familiar with that term, that means these are passive candidates that are not actively looking. And we tap them on the shoulder, so to speak, in recruiter speak, and we gauge their interest and their alignment with what we've developed together. And then ultimately, then there's also the individuals who apply, and we want to be sensitive to those. But candidly, most of our talent comes from our direct efforts to find individuals based on what you've told us. And that recruiting time allows us to have a calibration meeting. So what I would love to do is I'd like to be back in front of you talking about at least 3 to 4 candidates that we've seen at midpoint to share with you who we're seeing, what kind of talent is emerging, and let you give us feedback. Is this the right kind of talent? Do we need to retool? Is there additional information that's missing? This is an excellent opportunity to really see talent and get your opinion on what we're seeing in the marketplace, and does it reflect what you had hoped it would reflect for your mission. Our Better Best training. So I heard that there was a mention of training. We offer one of the best in class recruiting treatment for managers in the marketplace. So what we strongly recommend is that anyone who's going to be a panelist in any of our recruitments participate in that recruitment. I'm the leader and the facilitator of that recruitment, and it's been used nationally. And the state of Oregon uses it currently for their recruitment, and we currently use it with the city of Portland for all of our recruitments. So you're welcome. It's an incredibly enriching experience, and we believe that anyone who's going to be a part of an interview panel should participate in that. We present 10 candidates that we believe are the top 10. And our language, because it's inclusive, we use the word better best, because there aren't candidates who aren't necessarily going to be good. We don't look at it that way. We look at everyone is qualified and has an opportunity to be the best version of themselves in some space. So we present 10 individuals that we believe align with everything that I've talked about to this point: position description, all of your voices, the rubric, and we present that top 10 to you. What we ask you to do with our guidance, if necessary, is to narrow that to 5 finalists. And the 5 finalists are the individuals that would go through the interview process. And I'll talk about that next, which is, we call them our Better Best interviews. After the panel has gone through the interview training, we invite those 5 individuals to participate in the interview. We do co-curate the questions. We like to participate in that because we do like to make sure that we're asking comprehensive questions that get to the core of what you're looking for. And we have lots of practice at curating those questions. Those Better Best interviews are anywhere between 60 and 90 minutes, depending on your preferences. We feel like we can get really to the details of who the individuals are and what they're going to bring to this experience and to the role if we are able to have that amount of time together. And I'll talk about that in just a second in closing. We use those 5 interviews to go through 3 rounds. So it's usually the first round, all 5. We ask that maybe you narrow it to 3 in round 2, and then round 3 is the finalists, and we use meet and greets. Those meet and greets are also inclusive. We welcome the community. We ask that board members participate in those, and any other individuals that you feel are important to meet those candidates. Those candidates will, in most cases, spend a day with you, spend a day in the city if they're not already from here. And we also like to include those individuals, even if they are from Portland, that they're going to spend a day. That day is going to be engaging, answering questions, asking questions of you. In some cases, we do walking tours of communities so they can actually see the communities if they're not necessarily from the region. We do those, and we just invite them to really engage with our city. And then lastly, those meet and greets are, the opportunity for you to make final decisions on who's going to be the finalist candidate. And then lastly, the background screening, we do that. We also partner with the city in the background screening process. We like to make sure that these individuals have reference checks. We check education, if they have pedigree backgrounds, those are part of it. Any certifications that they have, I know we talked about that. That will be key for this particular role as well. So we like to just make sure that we verify. We trust and verify. That's kind of our practice. And so that's the process. We get to the final offer, and our job is to make sure that the individual accepts the offer at the end of the day. You do not want to go through a process this lengthy, this complex, and get to the finish line and not have a candidate accept the offer. Going through it twice, I'm hoping that if we have an opportunity to work together, that you'll be pleased and you'll enjoy our time together. But I think that you might get tired of going through this process, and have to do it again might not be something you would enjoy. Next slide. We'll skip this one for time. Next slide. So I talked about our commitment to diversity. So one of the things I wanted to highlight is that Modus is involved in the community. We are part of you. We are part of the city. So we're not just that in practice or in words, but we're that in practice. We're part of boards, we're part of organizations, and you can see in this, and I'll share this slide deck without boring you with the details, but we try to make sure that we are present in all of the aspects of what we are as Portland. Next slide. These are some of our clients, and I think it's important. I wanted to make sure this was included because, as you can see, the City of Portland, State of Oregon, and then we have an entire nonprofit division that works with our NGOs that does a lot of the work that we're talking about. They're part of the solution. And so those nonprofit organizations, whether it's 1,000 Friends or Home Forward, which does reentry programs, those are organizations that we're part of. Next slide. The last thing that I want to share, which I think is incredibly important for you to hear, is that I included this case study. I won't go into all the details, but one of the most complex recruitments that we were part of was the Department of Adult and Juvenile Detention in the state of Washington in King County. It was complex. We have a lot of experience in law enforcement and oversight. Both at the state level and the local level. And the reason why this case study is important, I think, for you to hear is because the oversight for this particular recruitment was that the King County had decided that they were going to sunset their juvenile detention center, that it was just going to go away. They didn't believe any further. They gathered information from the community, and they didn't believe that incarcerating juveniles was the best rehabilitation method available. And so they asked us to come in and help them lead a community-led, engaged process that included judges, law enforcement, community members, impacted families. And so we had to use that trauma-informed, psychologically safe process to walk them through finding a new executive director to help them sunset that facility, but do it under public scrutiny, as I'm sure all of you are very familiar with. And so our practice in leading through that recruitment, we led by the community engaged listening sessions. We led by making sure that we collected data on who was participating, what the candidates were going to bring. And it was a 3-year sunset. So there was going to be a tremendous amount of effort to get this done. And I thought this would be something you would appreciate because the oversight that it took for that board to come to the finalization of such a significant traditional methodology was significant, and we were able to help King County through that process, and it was a very successful one, and they were able to sunset that facility. So I wanted to make sure that I included that, just share with you some of our practice. I think we can conclude there. I want to make sure that I leave enough time for questions. I think I was initially allotted about 45 minutes, but I'm not going to talk that long. I would love to answer some questions if you have. Thank you so much for running through those slides. So would love to answer any questions or comments. Welcome those as well.
I hear you talk about, the efforts towards diverse candidates and so on. As a practical matter, or as close as you can, how do you ensure that, you can reach, communicate with, and find genuinely diverse candidates? And I mean that in the broadest sense.
Yeah, Trish, that is the phenomenal question. So over the decades, what we have found is that if you have access to the communities, and that when I say access, I mean participating in Latino Network, participating in Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Black Chamber of Commerce, the Asian American Commerce, if you have those connections and you're reaching out to them, because we don't want to assume that individuals are going to willingly participate. We want to invite them to participate. We want to invite our communities to be a part of this process. And those invitations are welcoming. And so inclusive language in the position announcement, that's something I know that you will ultimately get to, but inclusive language, the language that actually encourages individuals. So for example, one statistic, Trish, that we know as recruiters is that if women in leadership or women who are applying for positions, if they do not fit 90% or more of what's in the position announcement, they will not apply. It's a fascinating statistic. And so just having that kind of data and understanding, well, and that's a different thing for different populations. But if you know those kinds of things, it allows us to make outreach to the right populations to make sure that we're being inclusive. And I would agree with you. When I say inclusive and that it's a diverse population, I do mean of all backgrounds and experiences.
I'd like to ask another question. How, obviously, some of these issues may become contentious or disagreement not only among ourselves, but within the community. There's obviously some political ramifications, some media ramifications. How do you handle that? It sounds like you've had some experience in that area, but I'm curious to know, are there any parameters, that you use in determining how to navigate that?
Yeah, so this is one of the areas where I think it's going to be really important to have an experienced recruiting partner, and that's why I said it's not just a recruitment, that it's a consulting partnership, because there's going to be public meeting laws, there's going to be executive session compliance, and we want to make sure that all of those are met with extreme detail. But then there's also the element for individuals to be authentically themselves in the process. And so what we try to make sure that we're forming individuals that when we're gaining feedback, what's discoverable throughout the process when we get public records requests. We don't respond to media requests as a practice, as a firm. So we leave that to the city and to individuals like yourselves and whether or not that's something that you want to address. But we make sure that that's not part of our process. And then we're also safeguards. So information that may be discoverable, but there might be a gray area, we like to make sure that we get counsel. There are some times that there's information that we receive that is not appropriate and we don't disclose. And we also, Trish, to your point, we have proprietary processes that we use as Modus that are not discoverable that we can also use to allow you to engage in this process under our process, which also allows us in practice to make sure that we're being brand guardianships of you and the process itself.
Hopefully I can ask one more question. This is a quickie. Do you have any direction for us in terms of, releasing drafts of the director posting, what we should do about editing? What kinds of advice would you have for us? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. As I was listening to the discussion around transparency, there is an element to this. So we use two documents to attract talent. First is what you have, or maybe in front of you, which is the position description. That's one version. The other one is a position announcement. And the position announcement is designed to attract talent. The position description is to inform talent. And so those two documents work in tandem to one another, but we also want to make sure that we aren't unintentionally excluding individuals by going through an iterative process or a draft process for individuals to see commentary or thoughts that may not make it into the final draft and unintentionally exclude individuals from the process. Some of the best intentions, and I could understand what was the discussion. I understand that fully. It makes a lot of sense. We want to be transparent. But in our effort to be transparent, we have to be conscientious that we could also be exclusatory as well. So in this process, I hesitate to make a recommendation at this stage, Trish, but what I would say is, we want to be really thoughtful about who sees what at what stage of the process so that we can be as transparent and as inclusive as we possibly can. What we can ill afford is to have an individual see what we're producing and then have them decide to self-select out because they didn't like what they saw.
Thank you.
Just a quick question about the timing of the process. How long will it take?
90 days. I would anticipate 90 days, depending on all of your calendars. Okay. Yeah.
So basically, from the moment that we sign a contract with you, sorry, Madeline, thank you for being here, Orlando.
Thank you, Madeline.
Does that start when we sign a contract with you, or does it start when we actually start recruitment for the job?
Yeah, a great question. So because we have an existing contract, my understanding is that we're seeking approval this evening or at what stage you decide whether or not we would be your partner. The moment there's a yes, we go to work. So it would be 90 days. What we're hoping, and in the slide deck, there is a timetable in there, and it starts the first week of March. And so we would go 90 days. We would anticipate concluding at the end of May.
Can I just add so that folks know one piece? And Orlando, I'm sorry, you didn't know this, but in city code, and this might affect the timeline, it's required that under the hiring of the director, the code says that the same nominating committee that provides recommendations for CBPA member appointments will review applicants for director and make recommendations to the CBPA. So that would just need to be factored in and think through what that code language means, like precisely how that's defined. And then I need to think through legally whether the initial nominating committee still exists And would they be the ones to do this, or do we have a new nominating committee? Because the nominating committee is supposed to have 2 CBPA members on it, and currently it has 2 CRC members on it. So, so just a piece for timing for you all to think about. And then just while I have the mic, I'll really quickly tell you, as Orlando was talking about, there's executive sessions, and so just so you all know that you are legally allowed to go into an executive session to consider the employment of a public employee. So, and sometimes that's used because people may not want to apply if their name's going to get out there until they know they're going to get the job, or they're in the top 3 because they may not want to let their current employer know. So it's up to you to decide how you want to do that, but that's why sometimes folks will utilize that process. Thanks.
Hi, Kyle Ashby, District 2. Thank you so much for the presentation. Can you speak to a time in your firm where public commentary changed your recruitment strategy or the candidate pool that you were looking at?
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. I appreciate that. So we conducted a search for the Port of Portland for a Chief Prosperity and Equity Officer. And the premise of that recruitment was to include many of the public agencies and nonprofit organizations. And one of the things that came up in that conversation was that that individual needed to be from the community, which was interesting because it was a national search. Obviously, the port has a marine and an aviation and a police force and a fire department and all of these different areas. And so they felt like that person needed to be from the local area. We had initially started with the national search, and there was no question that we were going to find someone nationally for that from another port of call. It changed. We made a recommendation based on the feedback that we received that we find someone who was from the Portland metro area. And that turned out actually quite well. So, yeah.
Related to that, can you describe your firm's experience recruiting for net new positions within a city authority?
Yeah, so net new, transformative, all of those different things. So I would say 2 of the ones that we've done just recently with the merging between BES and water. Completely new bureau in that regard. And that was, it was politicized, it was challenging. There were feelings of angst and an uncomfortableness from the staff. And the possibilities that individuals within the community would be affected, because all of us who pay utilities within the city, I mean, there's anxiety around that. So I would consider that, and that just closed a month ago.
Yeah, I would say end of December.
End of December. So yeah.
Did the novelty of that extend the timetable at all?
Yes.
Okay.
It absolutely did.
About how long?
I think only a couple of weeks.
Okay.
We were able to gather feedback. It was about feedback synthesis in that particular area, getting everyone together, because as you would imagine, much like what all of you may experience, everyone wanted to be involved at a very deep level and wanted their voices heard and wanted to see their voice in the documents that we were providing. And so that extended a little bit, because you take staff of nearly 1,000 people and you need to synthesize that data and give it back to them so that they can see that their voices are heard. That was a significant undertaking. It took a little bit more time.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You can go first if you'd like. No, please. I just wanted to say what a comprehensive slideshow, impressive data by far. Also, you're a great speaker. Thank you for bringing all this information to us. Just wanted to confirm if you're going to have the 10 candidates at the end of the 90-day period, if that's what you're guaranteeing, or if you're only going to have the 1 candidate at the end of the 90?
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, first and foremost. Thank you. And yes, so the midpoint check is what we typically present 3 anonymized candidates so that you can see them, so without name and other information, but you're just there to inform us as to whether or not we're on the right track, and we normally are. And then when we get to the 90th day and the recruitment closes, we're presenting the top 10 at that stage. And so we want to be sensitive. So to your question, not to be overly wordy, but when we're wanting and desiring to be transparent to the public, there's also the dichotomy of genuineness in that. So if we have a position that goes live before we have consulted with the community, that can seem disingenuous. And so we think about public transparency on how we're doing this. And so the timing becomes really important. If we're presenting the top 10 before we've closed the position and made a public announcement that the position is closing, we can run into challenge. So we try to make sure that those are dates that coincide exactly. Closing the position, top 10, that way it passes scrutiny and individuals feel like they had a really legitimate opportunity to participate.
This would be a reason I would point out why we should have a chair and co-chair and rules. But I have a question. Thank you again, Mr. Williams. Is there a reason the city can't do this?
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Christopher Parra. I am the Workforce Recruitment and Training Manager here at the City of Portland. So with this position, it is a brand new position, and in terms of our ability to deliver services to recruit for this position, I would say we certainly could do administer a recruitment process. We have the capability to lead executive recruitment. However, knowing the criticality of this new role, the attention and the importance of attracting a diverse quality of talent, national search, I am confident that Modus can deliver this, deliver the results, and it'd be a return on investment. We being the city have some limitations in terms of the tools, the access to talent, in terms of diversity, in terms of qualifications needed for this particular role. Like I said, Orlando said, Modus has been selected in the past year to lead 2 important executive recruitments. We could have done it too. We've done others as well. We've led a fire chief. We've in the past year. But we are selective in terms of what the organization needs and what is the best firm or entity to lead a successful recruitment. So kind of a long version answer, but I hope.
Sure, I'd actually like a longer version because just specifics.
Okay.
I hear a lot of like, they'd be better, but why would be fantastic.
Sure, go ahead.
Actually, I would like the city to answer the question. Thank you.
Okay, Schuler.
Schuyler, like the street.
Schuyler, sorry. Okay. We don't have the depth, I can tell you that. We don't have the depth for this.
But we do have a hiring freeze at the moment, yes?
Yes.
So why don't we have the depth?
So we don't have the depth in terms of resources and tools in the database, the network, the branch, to do a national search for this particular role. We could, and I'm just not entirely sure if we could find the right or present the quality of candidates needed for this particular role.
Because
we don't have the experience. We don't have the experience of the breadth of experience, as I would say, to get.
I'm so sorry. The city doesn't have experience hiring?
No, we do have experience hiring.
So
we have experience
forgive me, I
hiring.
am very ignorant in this topic,
Okay.
so I just need it broken down for me.
Okay. So, yes, we have run successful executive recruitments. We've done that historically. But when I've determined the depth and the capacity of our recruitment team and the tools they have available to them, to headhunt, to source candidates, I know that there are more effective firms out there. That's why organizations contract out. So, and other firms and use other firms for certain specialty needs. So in this instance, I would recommend, because of the criticality of this role and its importance to the community, to the organization, I would recommend we contract out and use a firm to lead this recruitment. That's basically it. We definitely have a hiring freeze in place. We still do regular business in terms of recruiting efforts to support hiring managers and the organization as a whole. But in some instances, there is some certainly value, and it is common for organizations to contract out or have a contingency firm as an alternate option when there are difficult to fill jobs, there are critical executive jobs, specialty jobs. So, yeah.
Question. Thank you so much both for being here. My first question is, what is the cost to the taxpayer? Because unfortunately, we were not provided by contract that we probably should have in hand right now to understand exactly the cost that will be for the overburdened residents. The second question is, how will you make the background checks happen within the time frame that you promise, since they're so stringent and difficult to obtain? Thank you so much.
So, do you want to answer?
I'm happy to.
Go ahead.
I'm happy to. Certainly weigh in. So our contracted terms for the city are 30% of the annual compensation. That's a baseline cost. And what I would add to that is the cost is commensurate with the expense of actual success and the realities of having to rehire or potentially individuals vacating the role. So as Christopher was describing that, the baseline cost is allows us to do all of the things that I just described. So it's a flat rate. But there are also underlying costs that come along with that we absorb, and that's with our guarantee. For example, we guarantee these individuals for an extended period of time. In some cases, it's over a year, so that we make sure that these individuals stay in their role. That's part of our recruitment process. When I talked about candidate experience, that's important to know, I think, as a board. It's like, we want to retain this person. We need them to stay. Turnover does not help our mission, right? And so that's one of the elements that I would talk about. As far as the background check and the screening, so when we get to the final 5, that's when we start asking these individuals for detailed references that we can actually check. And many cases, because these individuals, as it was described, are confidential in nature, current employers and getting data from their existing employers can be a challenge. So we try to make sure that we are getting information that will allow us to look at their background. Past performance is a great predictor of future performance. So we try to make sure that we have that information at 5. We can get it sooner. In fact, we do social media checks. We do public checks for individuals. We like to make sure that individuals, if you Google a candidate, for example, we want to make sure there are no surprises for all of you. So those are elements that come with that screening, so we can do that early along. The screening that we do for the entire population that applies. So it's kind of what Christopher was describing. So if we get 300 applicants for this process, all 300 of the applicants are going to be screened. The final references of current employer, the individual who can speak directly to their existing experience, is going to happen at the top 5.
I'm sorry, just to specify, I'm talking about the CJES screening, so like law enforcement, which we all went through, and it takes quite a while. And so I'm just wondering how you can stay on the timeline.
Oh, yeah. So what we would like to find is individuals who have that certification and that screening already. If they don't, then we're going to have to put that in our timeline. That would be something that we would create in the project plan. Yeah.
Okay, just to follow up on that point, I know, hi, Dina Ross, thank you so much for being here and for answering our questions. I really appreciate it. One thing that we discussed at our last public meeting was how, like you said today, you usually choose from people that you already have in your contacts most of the time, more than finding other people who you are not already aware of. Outside of that, what are job boards that you usually do post? Will we be able to have insight on that? Like, for example, the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement is an excellent resource, and I would like to know that we are not only selecting from the people that you already know. I really want to make this accessible so that people in the community can apply as well that you might not be aware of. So making sure this is very accessible.
Yeah, Dina, thank you so much. And just as a point of clarification, the individuals that we already have are just a part of our network. They won't necessarily make up the candidate pool, but it is important for us to be able to reach out because our talent comes from direct sourcing in many cases. It's not that the person that we're going to talk to is going to be the person. It might be the person that they know after we talk to them. So just to clarify, we are going to use our network and leverage it, but it likely may not be that the candidate comes from that network. And to your other point, which is an excellent one, we absolutely would like to hear from you. This is why it's a co-curated process of any sources that you think might be viable. It's part of our service to make sure that these postings are in all of those places. So they're posted nationally, they're posted locally, they're posted with associations, they're posted at universities. We scour the country to make sure that we are posting in places where the eyes are going to see it and the populations that need to see it are, and they're welcomed in. But we absolutely want to talk to you and anyone else who has possibilities of areas that you think we should talk to. Yeah, great question.
Hi again, Kyle Ashby, District 2. What post-placement tracking does your firm do, and what's your success rate in the city of Portland?
Outstanding question. So we track every placement in a couple of areas. So longevity being one. We grade ourselves on tenure. So that's one of the key areas. How long do our people stay? We know that there's been studies for the city of Portland and the state of Oregon of how long people come and how long it takes them to leave. And so we like to make sure that we have a track record of individuals staying. And our placements are on average 36 months or more. So we have a long tenure for executives that stay. We also track performance. So one of the things that we like to do in the first 12 months is we like to help our candidates, with your approval and your blessing, curate their 90 to 180 day plan. So candidates oftentimes come into a role and you will give them guidance as a board, and I'm presuming that you would like to see a candidate's plan and their strategy. In fact, most of the time in phase 3 of our process, we like candidates to talk about their plan and we want to hear it. And so we help them with their plan. And then we're also checking whether or not they're meeting key objectives, those KPIs. So of course, throughout the process, when we're gathering information in the listening sessions and we're developing the rubric, that rubric also then becomes maybe the tool that you use to grade their performance. And so we're also going to use that to grade their performance. And then lastly, one of the areas that I think is incredibly important is that over the course of 90 days, if not longer, we develop relationships with these candidates. In many cases, they're lifelong. These people stay with us, whether they're placed or not. We like to make sure that they are psychologically aligning with the role as well. So we're just checking in, and we're making sure that if you reach out to us and ask, how is candidate A doing? How are they feeling about the role? Because maybe they won't be as transparent. Maybe they can't be in certain instances. So we like to make sure that we're having those conversations with them throughout the duration of their tenure in the role. And right now, if I can just add a little bit, it's incredibly important. Our city is going through a tremendous amount of flux and change. We want to make sure that anyone who comes into a role like this has that kind of support. Not that you wouldn't offer it for a director, but it's good to know that we'll be there.
Thank you so much. Just to clarify, is the 36-month average tenure for the city of Portland or your national brand?
National.
Thank
national.
You. Do you have any data on city specific?
Yeah, it's higher. I don't know exactly what the number is, but I'm thinking about the people that we've placed with the city, and they're still here.
Could we follow up on that?
Absolutely. So I think one of the best, and we certainly can give you the specific data.
Thank you.
I'll give you an example. The chief planner for the Bureau of Sustainability was, I think, longer than 3 years at this point. I think she was placed in 2022.
I know she's still here.
She's still here. She's still here. So and we can give you more data. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, this is Benedict. I think we should be realistic here. We're probably not going to interview 5 more executive search firms. So I would suggest we have enough information now to make a decision whether we want to retain Montes or whether we want to go with the city of Portland internal.
We should
functions.
have public comment first before we decide that. So they can maybe have the chance to ask these folks questions, ask us questions before we make a motion.
I want to weigh in and say I completely agree. I made this point at the beginning of the meeting. We held a vote on whether or not to release a draft document, and in the last 20 minutes, I heard a very compelling reason why I voted the wrong way, and why I would have considered voting a different way had I heard previously the concerns about applicants actually seeing that document out there. So I think we're the community board for police accountability, so we need to hear from the community before we take votes.
Sorry, I kind of disagree with that. We can't hear input from people on every decision we make. Like we have been delegated authority. We are a diverse set of people to do so, and I think we need to have at least a little bit of confidence in our own ability to make good decisions that are in the public interest.
We're about to make a budgetary decision, and it's actually mandated that we take public comment.
We have it.
Wait. Just really quickly, I think you set the agenda, and I think you authorized last time that you would hear public testimony on each agenda item. So because you already decided that that's how you were going to proceed, then there were sign-up sheets, and you do have somebody signed up to testify on this. So I do think you need to have public comment, because that was the approach you already agreed to take prior to you, and then you can consider a vote on the underlying question, or you can make a motion. Also, just for board member Tim Pitts, if folks want to make a new motion to undo what you already did, you certainly can do that as well, if you decide that it's better to not publicly release this because of what you've heard today. So just a couple things, if that's helpful, I hope.
I mean, sorry, but we can't operate like this. We don't have any rules, and then we get told we decided something the last meeting that I don't even have any record of that we decided or understand what we decided. Like I mean, at this point, I'm just suggesting again, we should just stop doing any business until we have some kind of operating rules, a chair that can lead the discussion, and some kind of system to track what we're deciding and what we're discussing at what point in time. This just does not work.
Before we go down a lot of rabbit holes, we're taking up these gentlemen's time. Does anyone have any other questions for them? I would propose we just finish up our questions for these folks, so they're not sitting here listening to the rest of this.
I don't have questions, but I would like them to still be available in the room for the public to ask questions.
Thank you, Orlando and Christopher. I appreciate your time. And we do have a public comment sign-up sheet, so thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate the questions.
You have one person signed up for this topic, Yume Delgado.
Good evening. My name is Yume Delgado. For the record, it's good to see you all again. I am the current chair of the Citizen Review Committee, former member of the Police Accountability Commission, former member, or potentially current, depending on what Heidi said, member of the CVPA Nominating Committee. So a couple of things. I want to speak to the public comment section first. I would strongly encourage you to take public comment when you are voting on a final item. I'm agnostic as to whether you do it on amendments or amendments to amendments or motions. I will say, Benedict, to your point, I think you are a governing body. However, I will say just candidly, and maybe I was a little more generous in my last set of remarks to you, you do not have the public's confidence right now. And so as you consider these matters, I think making sure that you have those touch points is really important. With regards to the recruitment, I do think it is unfortunate that the requirements under code are not factored into Modus's timeline, and so it would be good to work with them to figure out what that modified timeline looks like, how many candidates will go to that nominating committee, which I will remind you is made up of 4 council representatives, 3 police officers, and 2 people either from the CBPA or the CRC. Heidi, I hope you get back to us on that because we need to know. So I think that's important. I would also suggest that you talk with Modus about whether or not people will apply through the city's web portal or through Modus's website. If they apply through Modus's, I would perhaps just gently suggest as someone who has applied for jobs through Modus that you engage with them as to whether or not they confirm receipt, and we'll let people know on the outcomes of those recruitments. I think there was one other thing I was going to mention. Redlining, whatever, do what you want. I mean, candidly, I think it is useful for the public to see what is on the table, and that is often a function of asking staff to make sure these things are posted ahead of time so people know what you're going to be voting on and they can determine if they want to sign up for comment. Redlining or sharing a redline version is always useful. I don't think it needs to be for every single edit. That will just not be feasible for you. But making sure that you have some sense of like, this is what it was, this is what we're proposing, this is what we're considering. One thing that stands out to me in this job posting is that traditionally this role has been perceived, at least in the current system, as sort of the chief investigator for the city on issues of officer misconduct. That is only sort of slightly hinted at in this, and I think obviously it sounds like some of the prerequisites, if CJIS is a prerequisite, it will be implied, but when you think about how that recruitment is handled, you might want to consider what's in there. So do what you want. I'll say candidly, this is not my idea of a good time to be trying to cram these comments into 3 minutes. It's not a good use of my time. So when I am up here, I'm only doing it because I think it's necessary. So thank you.
Yume is the only person that signed up for public comment, so because there was a desire to have folks be welcome to come up, is there anybody else in the community in the room that would like to speak on this topic? Please state your name once you sit down. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Rochelle Silver. I'm a retired psychologist. I have a history with the City Police Accountability. I was on the CRC for 2 terms with COAB for the entirety of its existence, and currently I'm a member of the MHA.
Can you get closer to the mic? So sorry.
Currently I'm a member of the Mental Health Alliance, which is one of the amicus groups in the settlement agreement between the DOJ and the City of Portland about Portland police use of excessive force with the mentally ill. Regarding, well, first, before the employment thing, I just want to thank you for doing the name things. It's very helpful to us. I appreciate that very much. Regarding the employment, I don't know Modus. I think they are probably doing a wonderful job. Beautiful slides, good presentation. However, there are organizations in the country who specialize in knowing about people who know about what you need. And one of them is NACOL, as Dina said, but there are multiple jurisdictions throughout the United States who have employees who you might be interested in, and they might be interested in you. And I would think it would be to your benefit and to the benefit of the city and to the community for you to send out announcements to as many of those jurisdictions as you can become aware of. And I know that the PAC contacted multiple jurisdictions in their work. They may have a list, so you don't have to start from the beginning, but I think it would be to everybody's benefit to get people who clearly know the business. Thank you.
Is there a motion from the group? Oh, sorry, Trish.
I have what I think is probably an exceedingly dumb question, but obviously we're just beginning this process, so how things all fit together in terms of timelines and how we do things and, you know, what kind of order and so on. But one of my questions is, what is notice to the community? Like, obviously, we just received the draft, and I know it was, that was done exceedingly quickly and exceedingly well. But is it that it gets posted and then we have the meeting after? Is there a particular timeline? I mean, it isn't sufficient to just say, okay, we've given notice, so you guys have 10 minutes to respond. I assume there's something more to it than that, but I'm just inquiring. Heidi, maybe?
Yeah, I think that Chris and I were just talking about this, that generally, if something's going to be provided to you all, it should be posted publicly and available publicly, so before the meeting, so that everybody can see it ahead of time. There are things that happen in a governing body session where there's amendments that occur to a document. So it doesn't mean that can't happen, but it is. It's always important to have documents that this body's going to consider published at the same time. So ideally, at the time the agenda goes out, at the same time, anything that's going to be provided to all of you would also be provided to the public at the same time. I did want to say, I did have an answer to Yume's question. In rereading the code language, it's very clear the same nominating committee that provides recommendations for CBPA member appointments will review applicants for director and make recommendations to the CBPA. So what that means is the initial nominating committee that already existed would be the one to make recommendations for the director position to all of you.
So just so I understand, sorry. So MODIS, if we go with MODIS, would come up with candidates that would then go to the nominating committee for them to decide who the CBPA like gets the final pool of.
Yes, we'd have to look at how that's going to occur, but the nominating committee, the way that it happened with all of you, was the nominating committee did an initial review, and there was sort of a scoring, and anybody who scored above a certain percentage, so I think it was 60%, it was relatively low, got into further consideration. And then the nominating committee had, by majority of vote, recommendations to council, and there were, I think, 43 folks that were recommended to move forward. So, it probably would make sense if you decide to go with MODIS and their approach of having 10 folks for you to consider, that then the nominating committee would work with MODIS to narrow it down to 10 and recommend those 10 people to all of you by a majority vote of the nominating committee.
So I have a question, Heidi. So the fact that we are seated and we are board members, and when that happened after the recruitment process on our batch, how can the CRC still have their seats on that nominating committee? Because if we were to recruit a new batch of CBPA members, we would be seated on that nominating committee.
Right, and I'm just reading the code language to you, so obviously the charter set the big picture, which is that you all decide on the director and you hire the director, and then code sort of fills in some details, and this is the code, that language that got adopted, which says that it's the same nominating committee. So I would think that in the future, if you went through a process of having to hire a new director, which hopefully you won't, but if you were in that process, then there would be CBPA members, because at some point, the nominating committee, the next time that the nominating committee makes recommendations for new board members, it will be with 2 of you instead of the CRC. But this language just says the same nominating committee. It's just what the code language says.
So I'm not quite clear on whether we're doing the right process here then. Yeah. To me, it sounds like the nominating committee would need to work in publishing and pursuing candidates and then recommend them to us.
All it says is that they make recommendations to, they'll review the applicants for director and make recommendations to the CBPA. It doesn't say that they come up with a job description. It does not say that they come up with what the recruitment says. And it doesn't say that they decide on the process. I think that's in the board's purview to decide all of those things. It only says that they will review the applicants for director and make recommendations to the CBPA. And how that exactly happens, I think there's a lot of flexibility for you all to decide within that it's the same as we talked about. So your charter's your constitution, these are your laws. Within that, to the extent there's detail left out of that, which there is, you fill that in. That's within your purview as the board to make decisions.
That sounds extremely convoluted, but I guess at this point, I'm still suggesting that we should decide to hire Modus and then work with them to help them with us co-create some kind of process that allows us to have input without kind of being hamstrung by public meeting laws and by like having to meet as a whole group and, you know, stretching out the process. And I kind of think they can help us achieve those goals. So I guess I would vote that we hire them for this job.
So is that a motion, Benedict?
Well, since we don't have rules, I don't know what that means, so sorry.
I move that the city leads this. I don't know that we need an outside vendor.
Is there a second to that?
I would second, I'd second Benedict's motion.
Benedict didn't make a motion, Skylar did. So is there a second to Skylar's motion? Skylar's motion was to have the city lead the recruitment, not Modus.
So can we clarify the process right now? Would it be one person makes a motion, the other person seconds, and then there's a full vote on the body? Has that just kind of been decided for now?
There are no rules.
There are no rules.
That's what we've been doing. We've been doing
That's
consensus
what we've been
voting.
doing.
Okay.
I'm a little bit baffled
It's
as to why you would want the city to lead it when the city flat out said that they aren't the best people for the job to lead this.
Because I would like the funds that would go to Modus to instead go to employing other folks for the city or doing the city's business.
Can I comment on that? We got to remember that funding is issued out a certain way, and a lot of times we have funding put up for contracting purposes. Even if Modus wasn't hired, it doesn't mean that funding would automatically be able to go into the city hiring process. It just doesn't work like that contractually. I think the council could then decide to try to do that, but a lot of time it doesn't matter if it's cleanup, it doesn't matter if it's subcontracted. We need to subcontract out, right? The city has not historically, and we have data to prove this, done well with hiring without bias or discrimination. It is not a bad thing to go outside of the city and make these type of decisions. I would just remind everybody that we have data that says that the city struggles, especially in diversity and contracting, to get that out. And if we want to cast a net that is very diverse, I think it's really healthy that we take it out of the city hand. And I think that's a whole nother argument, right? How we use funding, but I would just like a motion to decide to hire Modus so we can make a decision and move forward. I want to make a motion to hire Modus to do our recruiting.
Second.
There was a motion by Terrence and a second by Justice. I'm writing this down. Give me 1 second, please.
In the interim, can I ask Modus one more question? Sorry. Would you be able to provide like a very thorough timeline with dates for each step in the process? As some timelines that we've been provided, specifically more so maybe by the city, have been more vague of like, this will be done by this month, but can we get like by this date, this step, by this date, et cetera?
Absolutely, Dina. We will create the project plan with specific dates for each of those mileposts that we talked about and any new ones that come up as a result of our conversations.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to make you come back up here.
No problem.
Okay, there was a motion and a seconded. So we're going to do votes, and like we did before, I'm going to turn to the folks online first. And the other online, hold on just a second.
Can you just clarify that this is the motion to vote to?
The motion is to vote to hire Modus. Haley, would you mind working to bring people, or Adam, can you please work to bring folks online on the screen so they can vote? And we're going to do the voting in the room. Thank you, Adam. All right, starting with Kyle.
No.
Ash Jimenez for yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Tim O'Donnell, yes.
No.
I.
Nope. Yes.
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 Okay, we're turning to online folks. Tisha, are you able to come off mute?
Yes.
Was that you were able to come off mute, or they?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's my vote. Yeah.
Thank you. Atticus?
Yes.
Thank you. Murtaza?
Yes.
And Jillian, are you able to?
I'm here. I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. So let me do math real quick. There are 16 yeses, 3 noes, and 1 abstain, and 1 person absent. So you all voted to hire Modus for this recruitment. I'm raising a question to the board. Would you like to continue with the agenda, or would you like to decide an interim chair to continue to facilitate these meetings?
I would move that we get a chair and rules. That'd be amazing.
Is there a seconded?
I also agree. And that's also something that I wanted to bring up with the creation of the agenda is I would like more feedback from the board on what's on the agenda instead of just what we talked about last time. There are points of feedback that I brought up to the city about what I'd like on the agenda, and I heard other people did the same, and it's not on the agenda. So right now it's kind of, if you say it at the end of the meeting, it'll be on the next one. I would like for us, like for example, the rules, that definitely should have been on the agenda today because it keeps coming up and it's getting in the way of other things. So I would like for co-chairs, committee, whatever we do to be involved in creation of the agenda with city.
Is that seconding Skylar's motion to have co-chairs?
Can we comment on this? I feel like
Yes,
we
as
didn't
soon as
even
we
get
get
to
a
comment.
motion in a second, you can comment.
Okay.
I see you. Is that a second, Dina?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Tita and then Terrence, and then whoever else wants to get in comment.
I think it's very important for us to maintain a sense of decorum. It's going to make us look very sloppy and decrease the confidence that the community has in us. I understand that everybody has a lot to say, but if we interrupt each other, if we're not raising our hand or looking to our liaison for guidance, this is not going to look good. This is our second meeting, and people are going to count on us to fail, to butt heads. So if we could just communicate more efficiently. I know we want to get going. I respect all of you. I like all of you. Let's just keep going with our agenda. But also, I do respect that we've made the motion to make this choice. Definitely.
There's no rule to raise your hand. You don't have to raise your hand. You can just, there's no rules.
Right. But I'm just asking that we do need to maintain some sort of decorum at this time to make our choices.
I haven't seen a lack of decorum here yet.
Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna hop in real quick. Is that okay?
I want to comment. Somebody want to say something online? Did I miss something? I'll wait for them.
Tisha, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Terrence. I appreciate it. I just want to hop in. I know there's a lot of powerhouse in the room, and I'm only online, so you can't really see me. But I want to say that I think for our leadership structure, and I do agree, like it looks really sloppy right now. I think for our leadership structure, we should do co-chairs to have equality, collaboration, and shared leadership. It needs to have staggered terms. We need to have a subcommittee to focus on specific responsibilities and tasks. And then we need to incorporate some bylaws. I think that's really our main focus. other than hiring a director. So if I could make a motion to do that, or if we can finish the motion and then move forward, that would be great.
I'll second you.
There's still a motion on the floor right now to figure out chairs. Sorry,
I would like to amend the motion to adopt what was said.
I don't think
As
we
you
have a
noted,
very
there aren't any
clear
rules,
motion on the table
but-
right now.
But if in order for you to keep moving forward, it might be helpful for you to consider like one motion, and then if somebody wants to move to amend, you can, but if you can have discussion around it. But Skylar say maybe he wants to amend it to adopt Tisha's, you could talk about that. There's a variety of ways you could do this, and I don't want to direct you on how you should, but you can certainly, if Skylar wants to amend his motion, he can seek to amend his motion, and sometimes it's called a friendly amendment. You could do it that way too.
I believe I did, no?
Yeah, yes, and so I'm just sort of sharing that's certainly a way you can do it, and that's a way governing bodies will do things at times.
At the last meeting, we said that we didn't know what we wanted the chair to do or what structure that we wanted. And I'm not sure we're in a better position right now to say exactly what we want that structure to look like. So I think that we need to dedicate a significant amount of time, which could be at our next meeting, to go through that, and we prepare for it for the next meeting. Because otherwise, if we vote on something now about who's going to be a chair, who's going to be a co-chair, we don't know anything now that we don't know anything new now from last week. So we're in no better position to make that decision. So I think that we would be foolish to make that decision right now, but if we give ourselves the homework, we do it, and we could make that decision next week, or the next meeting.
An excellent point. I amend the motion so that it is temporary for the next meeting, so that we can have that very discussion.
I actually, sorry, I know that was, I will second that because that is an excellent point to just select. I would say it would be great to have somebody to lead the meetings for the first couple of meetings, an interim co-chair perhaps. I think my only hesitation with voting for someone to be a co-chair is that frankly I don't know hardly anybody yet. I would love to see statements of interest would be what I would think would be the logical thing, is that anyone interested in being a co-chair would submit a statement of interest that we could review at the next meeting or one down the road. But I think tonight, if people are comfortable, we should try to pick two of us that have been talking and seem like ones that we want to be talking, and they're in charge next week.
I don't know why we would pick them right now for being in charge.
Because we're just discussing the lack of
Right,
the lack
no,
of
I know, but I
system
like
is
the idea of,
weighing
like-
us down.
Could we clarify what the motion is that's on the table, please?
The motion that is on the table is that we have co-chairs, and that whatever was said online, I apologize, I don't remember the name of the board member, and that this be temporary to the next meeting.
Tisha, would you mind repeating?
I'm going to
what you
correct
said?
it. Yeah, I'll correct it. So I made a motion to adopt having co-chairs for collaboration and shared leadership with staggered terms, and then developing a subcommittee or an executive committee of, I don't know, between 5 to 7 of us each. I mean, depending on how we break it up. And then we come back together for a full board vote. So that's what I'm imposing that we do for a leadership structure.
I think all of those need to be broken up into different motions and each one discussed individually. The subcommittee structure, the rules, and the co-chairs are all different things that we need to break down. So maybe it could be like 2 or 3 motions.
I'm wondering if we can start with our decision-making process. I would like, so Kristen provided us with several different links that had information about different decision-making processes that we could read before coming to this meeting. I would like us to use the democratic rules of order for public meetings as our decision-making process within the full board. I would also like us to consider in our committees having some sort of a consensus-based process yet to be determined. But if we could decide to use the democratic rules of order, then we can then move forward in making all of the other decisions that we need to make.
So real fast, there is the motion and the second on the floor for co-chairs, staggered terms, and executive committee right now.
I'm not clear if we're,
So that's what's being discussed right
yeah.
now. Yeah.
Can I ask to just clarify, are we deciding that, yes, we are going to have co-chairs, or are we deciding we are right now going to choose co-chairs? Because those are two different things.
I turn to the,
Answering that question?
Yeah. Yes.
So the motion, as I understand it, is that we would have co-chairs temporarily to the next meeting. And then again, I don't remember verbatim what was said online, but that was the addendum.
So we are voting to choose co-chairs right now that would be temporary co-chairs.
No, we're actually just, the motion is simply that that's what we would then vote on.
That we are deciding that we will
wanna
have
do that for
co-chairs.
next meeting.
Great. Okay.
And earnestly, I would just like any rules for next meeting.
All right, let's finish this motion then. Let's move it forward.
Can-
We have a motion to choose that we are going to select co-chairs in our next meeting, and that has been seconded.
No, not in our next meeting, but for our next meeting.
so today, potentially, is what the motion is. So
So we are now going to go through the process of choosing co-chairs
temporarily.
Temporarily for the next meeting. That is part of the motion, yes.
Yeah.
What exactly?
I'm going to read them. I took notes. I'm going to read it again. To co-chair for temporary purposes until more decisions can be made. Co-chairs that have staggered terms. There's an executive committee of 5 to 7 people, and it's for the next meeting.
Yeah, I want
That
to
is the
comment.
motion on the
'cause
table.
I just want to comment. I don't really understand what how important this is, why there's anxiousness and anxiety for people to choose chairs and co-chairs. It is not going to change the fact that we have to learn how to work together. Just let me finish my thought. Putting chairs and co-chairs together does not guarantee that somehow we become this amazingly cohesive board. It takes time, it takes work, it takes relationships. I do think we should be considering that we need rules, because we've doubled down on the fact that we have none. We should have rules, or we should have we should know that what a co-chair and chair would even look like inside of our rules. We should have a governing practice, how we're going to govern. I think we're jumping because we assume that somehow creates order. Everybody here, to your point, is going to have thoughts. They're going to have opinions. It is not going to force us to become organized. I just want to remind everybody, it takes time. We're all different human beings. The folks that got us here did a lot of work for a long time before they were something legit. And it's going to take time to be legitimate. So I would just say, in deciding, because I'm simply commenting on the motion, in deciding that, I would love everybody to consider, like, we're not in a rush to choose chairs, co-chairs, or any form of leadership. There is problems that come when you put titles on people without healthy relationships, boundaries, and rules. So I would just consider, maybe for now, as we vote on the motion, that we consider not, that motion not going through, we wind and set a motion, quite possibly to work on a steering committee that creates our rules, and then go from there. You guys, we don't have to feel pressure to be perfect overnight. It's a lot of individuals, and we're going to be amazing over time. We were picked. It was a long, strenuous process to be picked. Don't feel in a rush to choose leadership, to create titles with no rules and no guidance that we haven't created internally.
I'd like to second that.
Hi.
The
I had my
goal
hand
is,
up.
oh no, go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry. So I want to say I also agree with wanting to use the democratic rules and the consensus rules. However, I also appreciate your comments about not needing to rush. One of the only things that is really motivating me is that a chair and a co-chair would be able to work with the director on making decisions, creating bylaws, and really making some significant changes in the work. That's, if you looked at the job description and also read some of the training specifically within our role and duties, that is going to be required. So that is part of the urgency that I'm experiencing, but then also it's going to help us decide which governing style we're going to use. Right now, we're really leaning towards the democratic and also somewhat towards the parliamentary style rules. I can just, it's just really rough right now. It's, again, not trying to rush, but it's just so far in 2 meetings, it feels like we haven't made any progress.
No, thank you for that. I would just, and I'll give it to you, Sarah. But I would just, like, it is not as bad. I've sat on a lot of boards, and I've been at the starting points. We are not as bad off as you guys think. And I'm telling y'all, choosing leadership is not going to promise that we're going to become smooth. Building relationships and building trust, like you've continued to say, Tim, that will lead us towards that point. I think we need to create bylaws ourselves. We need to create the standard, and then we can go from there whether or not we have chairs or not. But we do just need to ultimately vote on what was recommended. But it is not as bad as y'all think. I was not able to speak, but I watched, and it's gonna be rough no matter what. Y'all are doing better, I think, than y'all think. It's gonna take time, to your point, to get public confidence, because this is not a simple thing, everybody. Lives are at risk. How we deal with police brutality and behavior is very important, and we are okay. This is the second meeting. I'm not sure what y'all all expect us to be in 2 meetings, but I'm telling you, it's gonna take a lot of time and a lot of relationship building and a lot of trust, even before, to your point, Tim, that we can even choose. I mean, what do we base that choice on? Who gives the best speech in this moment? I think that's problematic because we haven't even had time to build relationships. But thank you. I totally understand where you're coming from, regardless of that.
No, yeah, it's just the need for organization is very clear, just based on the way that we're having this discussion.
I'm going to do time check. We're 15 minutes till the end of the meeting. We do have other staff here that, should be leaving. So adjourning the meeting at the right time is important. So is there any more discussion on the motion on the table? And then I would recommend calling a vote. So Sarah, I know you've been waiting, but.
I have been waiting quite a bit. So regarding the chair, co-chair, et cetera, working with the director, since we don't have a director yet, I'm not sure that needs to be, I don't know what, like Terrence has said, I don't think there's any immediate rush to this. I understand people wanting some procedure for the meetings and rules and stuff. I also hear you talking about how it seems we're leaning towards certain style rules. I think each of us might have an idea of what those rules should be and stuff. I mean, I actually looked at all the stuff ahead of time and came up with kind of a hybrid combination of them, of how things should, how discussion should be had and how decisions should be made. So I think maybe for the next meeting, perhaps we can each put forth, ahead of time so that everybody can see it ahead of time, what ruling style, what, meeting style we think would be most effective, and then discuss rather than making any decisions right now.
Excellent.
I totally concur that it's just too soon. And, co-chairs, should we have co-chairs or just a chair? Or, that's a decision. I think where things a little bit started to devolve tonight is because, to some degree, most respectfully, and I probably was tempted to do this too, is to interrupt. And I think as long as there's one individual, and frankly, at our first meeting, when Kristen just, you raised your hand and she would call on people as fairly as she could, at least initially, that seemed to work well. And I just don't know why we can or really should, in an informed, respectful way, decide we should do co-chairs, even on an interim. I mean, I don't know you all, and I look forward to knowing you better. I just think we can get too tied up in, getting someone right now. I also agree that deciding whether we want a consensus model, democratic model, Robert's Rules of Order, whatever, that will then allow us to have an orderly process about determining about, who should be chair or co-chair. I think it's just too soon. And I would, vote against the motion.
I was going to say, I think we should vote on the motion as it stands, and then if we don't vote for it, I personally think we need to have an entire meeting dedicated to just rules and what is this going to look like, and probably 2 or 3 meetings as we go through this. I agree. I think having a title in and of itself does not automatically lead to order. I think there's a lot of variables. So I say we vote on the motion, and my counter motion preemptively is that we dedicate 2 to 3 meetings specifically to the rules, because I think that's what's going to really dictate how effective we are moving forward and to build up the community trust and how, just build those relationships. I mean, yeah, I'm saying next meeting and the one after that. I don't think 2.5 hours is going to be enough to get through everything that we need to get through.
Kyle?
Hi. I opened up Kristen's email today with all the links of all the different styles of rules. I haven't had time to think about it. I have no sense of how many people in the room on this body have had time to think about it. We made a decision on a recruitment form. I'm excited to work with you. I heard your presentation and voted 10 minutes later. That's not my preferred style of making decisions. We did it. I'll live with it. I'm sure it will go great. But I'd like us to just take time to consider things before we take votes. The arc of justice is long. We have public commentary that we're already messing up. I'd like to take a beat to think about how to be effective rather than urgent. So I'll vote on the motion that we're doing right now, but I'd also like time to think about things before we do them.
And then because you decided to hear public comment before you vote, I'm going to call up the 2 people that have signed up for public comment. I'm going to ask that you both stay to a minute, please, so we can try and get out of here on time and they'll have time to vote. And the first one up is Debbie Iona, please. This is the comment on the motion. This will probably be the final public comment as well. Okay, thank you, Debbie. You may, please.
We got to stop meeting like this. Yumi Delgado for the record. I think what I would recommend to y'all is that, like many of you said, take a beat. I think the first step you should do is pick at least an interim model of governance so that you know what you are electing someone to do. If I were to make a recommendation, CRC is this 11-member body. We have a chair and we have a vice chair who fills in for them. Those 2 parties do agenda setting. They also are delegated to function as intermediaries to other bodies such as PSEP or the CRC. I think those are the 2 primary things that you should invest a chair or co-chair in right now and just say, hey, you work with Kristen to set an agenda. You work with any other bodies to get the information you need. You can do that for 3 months. You can have co-chairs and have them alternate who's the presiding officer. I don't care. That's up to you. The other thing I would encourage you to consider maybe at a second or third or fourth meeting is directing or requesting additional staffing, because I think clearly that's become an issue is just the amount of time that Kristen has to support this work. So I would not take a vote tonight if I were you. I would maybe decide that model at the next meeting. If you have time, you could do statements of interest and move forward. Otherwise, just do it at the 3rd meeting or 4th. I'm losing count. All right, have a good night.
Why not, Debbie? I love it.
Hi, Debbie Iona. I was a member of the Police Accountability Commission from the start to the finish. And so what you guys are experiencing right now looks pretty familiar. Setting up, ours had 20 members. You guys have 1 more. So setting up a new group is, it's a lot of work and it's complicated. And so what I want to encourage you to do, though, is when we spent all that time meeting, at the end, there's a 500-page report that has everything in it, and you just Google Police Accountability Commission and probably put Portland in there, and you'll find it. It's well organized. It's easy to find things. There's a whole section on, how we figured out our governing structure and the decision-making process and the bylaws and all that. So you can go check that out. Part of, our intention is for that report to be a resource for this board. I mean, we had that in our minds, so please make use of it. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie.
Oh, yes.
Okay, after public comment is the time for voting. So we will go down the line again. I will write everybody's names. You are voting on co-chairs, with the staggered term, an executive committee of 5 to 7 people, and it's temporary starting at the next meeting. Kyle, please start us off.
No.
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 No. No.
No.
No.
No.
No.
This is Tim, and no.
Kern Frechette, no.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
Online, Atticus?
Atticus, no.
Thank you. Jillian?
No.
Murtaza?
No.
And Tisha?
Yes.
Okay. There are 15 yeses, 15 noes, 4 yeses, and then 1 absent vote. So you are not moving forward with co-chairs at this meeting. Can I ask a question about meeting frequency? I'm seeing thumbs up, so I'm taking that as a yes.
Although I thought that Pete wanted to propose some alternative that kind of wraps up this discussion. Is that still true?
Yeah, I wanted to propose that we spend the next meeting talking specifically about, we have one agenda item, which was to go through some of these rules and voting processes.
Is there a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second you.
Is there any discussion?
Could we
Is there
include
any-
statements of interest from folks who want to be chair?
Say that again, Shelley. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Is it too much to include statements of interest from people who want to be chair at the next meeting when we're discussing our governing structure?
Pete, are you okay with that amendment?
Yes, I think if people are interested in having, but I wouldn't call it a chair. I'd say people, a statement of interest in some sort of leadership position, because I don't want to put a title on anything just yet.
Okay.
Can I just clarify? I thought that you were suggesting that we spend the meeting talking about rules of order and not establishing a governing structure. And I think the statements of interest would come with the establishing a governing structure piece, which would come later. So if maybe I misunderstood, but I understood that you want us to, that your motion is to establish the rules of order first up and then march forward.
I think one tees up the next one. So if we have rules of order and if we already have a preset group of people who are specifically interested in having some sort of leadership role, which is not necessarily that we need to take a vote on who they are or what that's going to be, but at least we know who they are. That's where my thought process was going.
I would like to encourage when we have multiple ideas like this to break them up into different motions, because what if I agree with one heavily and one not at all? So I would really, really ask that people make multiple motions for different ideas.
So I'll amend mine.
Can you say the whole statement again, please, Pete, so everybody understands and I can write it down?
So what I think the next meeting, we should have one agenda item, which is to begin the process of articulating rules of order and the decision-making process.
I second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I have a question. Is this something that should be in one of the main meetings, or are there executive meetings? It seems to take up one of the public meetings, having discussions about how our rules are going to work internally. It seems kind of, I don't really know how that works.
I will share with you that when our new council was formed, that they had a draft for code language for what their process would look like. It was in charter, though, that they elect a president at the first one. So they already had in charter a president and a vice president. But they did adopt sort of the rules of order like you're talking about, by somebody bringing forward a proposed code language, and then they all talked about it, and there were amendments made. It was shared ahead of time and posted publicly ahead of time, that draft. So if that's an option for you, is to, if you want to, you could send some things to Kristen of how you might want it to look, and you might want to have it in writing. That might be helpful for you, or however you want to do it, but that's one idea for you.
Since we got you here, my understanding is that we can go into executive session to receive legal advice, and so, but it needs to be noticed. Is that correct?
There are points during a governing bodies meeting where the body can determine that they need to go into executive session to receive legal advice. And that's because there's not more time to be able to notice it. The public meetings law allows you to notice it in that manner.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we can, if we discuss the rules the next time, we can receive legal advice from you.
Yes. And then keep in mind too that you want public comment on your, I think you said you wanted public comment on all your motions, so.
Since
Sorry,
it's 8:29, go ahead, Justice.
I know it's 8:29, I'm sorry. I just want to put this point out there for everybody to kind of contemplate for our next meeting and our decision-making process in general. Without thoroughly vetting and thinking through things, we have unintended consequences that we don't see as we move forward. Thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate what you said earlier, and what you said was, I would have voted differently had I been informed and I had the knowledge that I needed to have. And so, and Terrence, great point. We have time. We're not perfect here. And so as we're walking through this process together, let's not try to rush through it, knowing we're going to make mistakes, but let's try to get it right. And the mistakes we can go back and change. We're not set in stone in one particular process, but the idea is we need to be informed and make informed decisions before we move forward with things. And that's it. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? Trish, Tita?
I just want to quickly say, I think there's a difference between a chair, a co-chair, and a meeting facilitator. It seems to me just having a meeting facilitator is what's helpful. In other words, if someone raises their hand, someone is recognized, someone not, so we're not just jumping all over each other. So it seems to me right now, frankly, Kristen's been doing a really good job at that. I'm not saying she has to be the person, but I think as we get going, having just a meeting facilitator and then considering the rules are the way to go.
Exactly, definitely. It's just about giving more people an equal voice and not interrupting each other, and really showing the public what we're capable of, because piggybacking or just talking over each other, it's just not a great way to be the OCBPA that we can be. And leadership really organizes the meeting. If you looked or opened the links or watched the videos, chair and co-chair, or whatever you'd like to call it in our next meeting, they would be responsible for organizing meetings, for calling on people, unless you want that to be our liaisons or coordinators' responsibility. It's not just about choosing people in charge. It's about choosing part of our organization and part of, moving forward.
Is there public comment on this motion? Okay. I'm going to ask that you all vote. Thank you, public. Kyle, everybody, the motion is that the March 11th meeting be about rules and go from there.
Sounds great. I'm in.
Love it. Wait, hold on, I gotta get my yes and no's. Ash?
Enthusiastically, yes. Thank you.
Yes.
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 Yes, and I have one request, is that, Kristen, could you share the PAC report so we can read that ahead of time or look at it?
Absolutely.
Tim O'Donnell, yes. It's on.
Corinne Frechette, yes.
Yes, and I'm really encouraging anybody who has any specific ideas to send information along. You can send it to Kristen. She can distribute it to us as long as it's not like specific opinion or debate.
Yes. Yes.
Sure.
Yes, please.
Jillian,
Yes.
Atticus,
Yes.
Murtaza,
Yes.
and Tisha, sorry.
Yes.
Congratulations on your first unanimous vote in the room.
Yippee.
Woohoo! Is there anything else, or should we call this meeting? We are adjourning this meeting. Thank you, everybody.